The smell of fresh paint and the soft sound of my brush strokes filled the studio, creating an atmosphere that reflected my soul in the midst of a creative process. I was focused on a new painting, a blend of vibrant colors that represented the hope and freedom I longed for. The sunlight filtered through the windows, illuminating every corner of the space, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. It was in that instant of artistic euphoria that the door opened and Jake entered my private world. He was radiant, as if the sun had decided to join him. The wide smile on his face was contagious, and I couldn't help but smile back. He stepped toward me, holding a magnificent bouquet of flowers. The colors of the flowers danced in harmony with those I had chosen for my canvas. "Hey, love, look what I brought you," he said, extending the bouquet toward me. "Wow, Jake, they're beautiful," I exclaimed, admiring the flowers. "How did you know I needed this today?" "I always know," he replied with a wink. "And actually, I have something very special to tell you." My heart raced. Jake always had a way of making special moments even more magical. "What is it?" "You're making me curious." He moved closer, his expression now serious, but there was a spark of excitement in his eyes. "I'm about to make a proposal that could change our lives forever." I felt a flutter in my stomach, a mix of anticipation and nervousness. "Proposal? What are you talking about?" Jake took a deep breath, as if preparing for a leap. "I want to ask you to marry me, Sarah. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." His words echoed in my mind, but before I could fully process them, my phone vibrated on the table, interrupting that magical moment. I looked at the screen and saw an anonymous message. Curiosity took over, and for a moment, the magic of the moment dissipated. The content of the message hit me like a bomb. "Jake is cheating on you with his colleague." My heart stopped for a second, and I felt a knot form in my throat. The colors of my painting seemed to fade, and the studio, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison. I looked at Jake, who was so radiant and full of hope. How could I reconcile that image with the betrayal I had just discovered? "Sarah, what's wrong?" he asked, noticing my sudden silence. I need a moment," I replied, trying to stay calm, but my voice came out trembling. I let the phone slip between my fingers, and the flowers fell to the floor, as if the world were crumbling around me. "Are you okay?" "What was that?" Jake stepped closer, his expression now filled with concern. "I just need to think," I murmured, stepping away from him. Confusion and pain swirled in my mind. The marriage proposal felt like a distant echo, opposite to the devastation in my heart. How could he ask me that after what he had done? Jake, sensing my state, tried to reach out to me. "Sarah, please talk to me. What's going on?" "I don't know if I can do this right now, Jake," I said, my voice faltering. "I need to understand what's happening." He hesitated, as if trying to find the right words. "I love you, Sarah. I don't know where that message came from, but I would never do anything to hurt you. You know that." I don't know what to believe anymore," I confessed, finally letting the tears fall. The mix of joy from the proposal and the pain from the betrayal was a storm I didn't know how to control. Jake, devastated, knelt in front of me, his hands holding mine, seeking a connection that felt so distant now. "Please don't leave me like this. I want to spend my life with you. I want to build a future by your side. I'm ready for that." I looked into his eyes, searching for some truth, some answer that could give me peace. "Jake, this is a lot. I don't know if I can say yes right now. I need time to think." Jake's expression changed, and hope was replaced by palpable pain. "But, Sarah, I planned all of this. I thought you would be the person I would spend my life with. It can't end like this. I really don't know if I can commit right now," I replied, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. The truth was, Instead of a bright future, I only saw uncertainties. Jake released my hands, frustration and sadness reflecting on his face. I just want you to know that I love you. And I would do anything to prove that. Maybe I need some time alone. To understand all of this, I said, finally finding the courage to express what I felt. He stood up, the expression of pain shifting to resignation. If that's what you need, I can't stop you. But know that I'll be here when you're ready. When Jake left the studio, the door closed behind him and a deafening silence took over the space. I let myself fall to the floor, the flowers scattered around me, a reflection of my shattered heart. The world seemed to spin chaotically, and I didn't know how to find my way back. The painting that once brought me joy now felt like a portrait of my confusion. The colors that once vibrated now seemed dull, lifeless. The marriage proposal echoed in my mind, but the betrayal was a deafening scream that wouldn't let me find peace. I took deep breaths, trying to find a way out of this emotional labyrinth. Tears streamed down my face, mixing with the paint still on my hands. And as the sun began to set, I knew that night would be long and filled with questions. What would I do next? What did it mean to love someone who might have broken the trust one placed in him? These questions danced in my mind as I looked at the blank canvas in front of me, reflecting the confusion and pain I felt. The future seemed uncertain, but I knew I needed to find an answer within myself. And as night fell over New York, I wondered if I could do this alone. The atmosphere in the city felt as oppressive as the whirlwind of emotions consuming me. After Jake's marriage proposal, everything in my life had changed. I sought refuge, someone who could understand the storm brewing inside me. And that's how I decided to meet Lily, my best friend, who always knew how to help me see things more clearly. I arrived at the cafe where we used to meet, the small table in the corner that had sheltered us since our college days. The smell of fresh coffee and the soft sound of music in the background were a temporary relief, but I couldn't shake the unease that accompanied me. When Lily walked in, her radiant smile almost made me feel a little better, but looking into her eyes, I realized she was worried too. "Hi, Sarah. Are you okay?" she asked, pulling out a chair. Her sweet voice had a tone of concern that immediately made me want to break down. "Hi, Lily." "No, actually, I'm not okay," I replied, trying to hold back tears. I don't know what to do. Jake proposed to me, but I found out he cheated on me." Lily was silent for a few seconds, her expression changing from surprise to indignation. "What? Sarah, that's ridiculous. You need to confront him. You can't just let this slide." "I know, but what if he's not really guilty? What if this is all a misunderstanding?" The anonymous message, maybe it was sent by someone trying to split us up, I said, feeling confused just thinking about the situation. "Sarah, you deserve to know the truth. It doesn't matter if it's a misunderstanding or not. You need to hear it from him. Confronting him is the first step to feeling in control again," Lily insisted, determination in her eyes. I closed my eyes for a moment, absorbing her words. It was true. I couldn't live with this uncertainty. I needed answers, even if they were painful. "You're right. I'll talk to him. Tomorrow, as soon as he gets back from work," I decided, feeling a wave of courage wash over me. After saying goodbye to Lily, I went home, but I couldn't focus on anything. The night dragged on, and I barely managed to sleep. Images of Jake, his smile, and the proposal mixed with the betrayal I had discovered. The contrast was unbearable. The next day, my mind was a mess. What would I say to Jake? How could I put into words the pain and betrayal I felt? The anticipation of the conversation made me even more anxious. When I finally heard the key in the door, my heart raced. Jake walked in, wearing the cheerful expression he always had, but when he saw me, his smile faded. "Hi, babe. You look different, he started, concerned. We need to talk, Jake, I said, my voice shaking. He sensed the seriousness and sat down in front of me, his gaze now focused and restless. About what? He asked, trying to stay calm, but I could see the nervousness in his eyes. About the message I received. About the cheating, I said, each word feeling like a weight that needed to be lifted. Do you have something to tell me? He took a deep breath, his expression shifting to a mix of confusion and despair. Sarah, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not true. Who sent you that message? I need to know. I don't know who it was, but that doesn't change the fact that cheating is a possibility. What else should I think, Jake? You got down on one knee and proposed to me, and shortly after that, I found this out. My words were sharp, and I could feel the pain building in my chest. Babe, it's not what you think. I've never cheated on you. You know how much I love you. He tried to convince me, but the sincerity in his voice felt distant. Jake, how can I believe you now? You could have lied to me for so long. Your word means nothing after what I've discovered, I said, frustration and sadness spilling from my voice. He stood up, starting to pace back and forth, as if he was trying to think of a way to explain himself. Sarah, I swear this is a lie. I don't know who's trying to hurt us, but I'm not that man. I'm your fiancé, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. The desperation in his voice touched me, but the pain and betrayal I felt were stronger. I can't do this, Jake. I can't trust you. I need time, I declared, my voice choked. Time? Time for what? For you to believe lies? To leave me? He was visibly agitated, his hands trembling. For me to think and decide what I really want. I don't know if I can continue with this. You've broken my heart, I said, feeling tears streaming down my face. He stopped, his expression changing, and for a moment, I saw a broken man in front of me. Sarah, please. I can't, I replied, my voice firm even though my heart was shattered. I need the truth, and right now, I can't trust you. Jake stepped back, frustration and pain mingling in his gaze. This can't end like this. I love you, Sarah. I'm going to fight for us. But I knew his fight couldn't erase the betrayal. With one last look, I turned and walked away. At that moment, I was determined to confront the truth, even if it meant opening wounds I didn't know were there. The pain of betrayal was still fresh, but now I was ready to face it and find the strength I needed to move on. The soft afternoon light filtered through the windows of my studio, creating a play of shadows and colors that I loved. It was my refuge, the place where I could lose myself in thoughts and brush strokes. After discovering Jake's betrayal, art became my only escape. Each brush stroke was a way to express the pain I felt, while at the same time, a way to find myself again. Today, I was preparing a new canvas for the upcoming exhibition. The theme was the search for identity after the breakup of a relationship. With soft piano music playing in the background, I began mixing the paints. The vibrant colors I chose reflected the confusion that filled my heart. Yellows, reds, and blues swirled together in a whirlwind, just like my emotions. When I finished the first layer, I looked at the canvas and smiled, even if it was with a bitter taste in my mouth. It was a true representation of what I was living. The studio door opened and Lily, my best friend, walked in with a wide smile and a coffee in hand. Hey, Muse. How are you? She exclaimed, handing me the warm cup. Better now that you're here, I replied, taking a sip. I'm trying to capture a little of my soul on this canvas. Lily looked at the painting and frowned. It's amazing, but it seems like you're still caught in a whirlwind of feelings. You need to break free from this, Sarah. I sighed, knowing she was right. It's hard. I feel like I'm in a maze and I can't find the way out. Then let's take a step out of that maze. How about we go to the exhibition? You can reconnect with people you haven't seen in a while. It might help you see things differently. The idea was tempting. I needed a push to step out of my bubble. You're right. I need to remember what it's like to be myself, without Jake's shadows around. The day of the exhibition arrived, and although my heart was racing, there was an excitement in the air. The walls of the space were adorned with works by various artists, and the atmosphere was filled with people, laughter, and conversation. I wore a blue dress that accentuated my figure, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw a version of myself that was beginning to resurface. As I entered, I felt a wave of nervousness, but also a sense of freedom. People approached, admiring my work, and I allowed myself to be swept away by the conversations and compliments. It was as if each word was a balm for my wounded soul. Among the familiar and unfamiliar faces, I spotted some college friends. As I approached, I was greeted with warm hugs and genuine smiles. The connection I felt with them was real, without the complications that Jake had brought into my life. Sarah, it's so good to see you. Your new collection is incredible, one of them, Lucas, said. Thank you, Lucas. I'm so happy you came, I replied, feeling happiness fill my heart. As we chatted, I realized that, little by little, the pain of Jake's betrayal was dissipating. I was surrounded by people who supported me and cared about my art. It was a refreshing feeling. But deep down in my heart, a part of me still wondered what Jake was doing, if he was thinking about me. Since our last conversation, he had tried to reach out a few times, but I had remained firm. The decision to distance myself was difficult but necessary. As the night approached and the exhibition was in full swing, a familiar presence made my heart race. Jake appeared. He was standing at the entrance, watching me with the same look that had captivated me in the past. At first, my instinct was to step back, but something inside me held me back. What was he doing here? Sarah, he said, slowly approaching. You look amazing. Jake, I replied, keeping a neutral tone, trying to hide the storm brewing inside me. What are you doing here? I came to see your exhibition. I didn't know you were doing this. It's amazing, he said, gesturing toward my works. Thank you, I murmured, unsure how to continue. The temptation to revive old feelings was present, but I was determined not to let myself be swayed. I wanted to talk to you, he began, the tone of his voice more serious now. I'm sorry for what happened. I made a mistake. I want to show you that I've changed, that I'm a different man. I took a deep breath, trying not to let his words affect me. Jake, this isn't about you. It's about what I need and what I can't ignore. You broke the trust we built. I know I messed up, but I'm here, willing to fight for us. I want you back, Sarah, he said, sincerity in his eyes. I looked into his eyes, searching for the truth in his words, but a voice inside me whispered that I couldn't let myself be fooled again. Jake, I can't just forget everything that happened. It's not that simple. He stepped a little closer, almost as if he wanted to touch me, but I recoiled. Please give me a chance. I know I can do better. I love you, Sarah. His words were like a sharp knife, cutting even deeper into what remained of my security. I wanted to believe, but the betrayal was still fresh in my memory. I loved you too, Jake. But love isn't enough when trust is lost. I need time to think about all this, I said, trying to be firm. He nodded, understanding, but the frustration etched on his face was undeniable. I won't give up on you. I'll prove that I deserve a second chance. As Jake walked away, I noticed that the weight I felt in my heart began to dissipate. The night continued, and I returned to conversations and laughter with my friends. Deep down, I knew I was making the right decision, but the internal struggle was far from over. The exhibition was a success, and I felt stronger than ever. I was rediscovering who I was, away from Jake's shadow. Art was freeing me, and I was willing to leave the pain behind, even though the path ahead was uncertain. The morning was sunny when I decided to meet Tom. Since we started talking, he had made me feel something I hadn't felt in a while: lightness. He was a charismatic photographer, always with a smile on his face and a word of encouragement. The meeting was set in a cozy cafe in the Lower East Side, a place I loved for its graffiti-covered walls and bohemian atmosphere. Arriving at the cafe, I spotted Tom sitting at an outdoor table, looking through the lens of his camera. The way he focused on capturing the moment was mesmerizing. When he noticed my presence, his eyes lit up and a smile spread across his face. "Hey, Sarah. I was thinking about you," he said, standing up to greet me. As he approached, I felt butterflies in my stomach, something I hadn't felt in months. "Hey, Tom. I was looking forward to seeing you too," I replied, trying to hide a silly smile. "What are you photographing?" "Oh, just some shots of the cafe. The place has an amazing energy, don't you think?" He pointed to the camera, showing me some photos he had taken. "I want to capture the essence of the place." We sat and talked about art, photography, and our lives. The conversation flowed like a calm river, and with each word exchanged, I felt myself disconnecting from Jake, even if just for a moment. Tom spoke about his experiences at different exhibitions, and I could see how much he believed in the potential of art. He seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say, which made me feel special. "You need to showcase your new works in an exhibition. I'm sure people would be fascinated," he said, letting out a light laugh. "Art is an extension of who we are, and you have so much to share." "Thank you, Tom. That means a lot to me. I'm trying to find my voice again after everything that happened," I confessed, looking down, feeling a weight in my chest. "Don't worry, you'll find it. Sometimes we need to lose ourselves to find our way back," he said, placing his hand over mine. His touch was gentle and comforting, and I felt warm inside. After that meeting, we started seeing each other more frequently. Tom accompanied me to some of my painting sessions, always encouraging me to explore new techniques and to let my creativity flow. The connection we developed was palpable, and I couldn't help but feel drawn to him. Each shared laugh, each exchanged glance made me forget a little more of the pain Jake had caused me. On a sunny afternoon, while we were in my studio, Tom closely observed a painting I was finishing. "This piece is incredible, Sarah. You've captured a vulnerability that many artists struggle to show," he commented, leaning in to see every detail of the canvas. "Thank you. I'm trying to express my feelings more honestly. It's a process, you know." I was so focused on his words that I barely noticed how he moved closer, just a few inches away from me. "I admire your courage. It's not easy to open up like that," he said, his eyes locked onto mine. The tension in the air was palpable, and for a moment, I wondered if he felt the same way. It was then that I received a message from Jake, saying, "Can we talk? I need you." My heart raced as I read those words. The memory of the betrayal still hurt, but the idea of Jake trying to reconnect brought a wave of confusion over me. "Are you okay?" Tom asked, looking at me with concern. "Yeah, it's just a message from Jake," I replied, trying to hide the turmoil I felt. "He wants to talk. Are you going to meet him?" The worry in Tom's voice was evident. "I don't know. I thought I had put all of this behind me, but he's still present in my life, in some way," I confessed, looking down at the ground, the weight of doubt suffocating me. "If you need someone, I'm here. I don't want you to feel pressured to do something you don't want," he said, his voice soft like a whisper. I wanted to believe I could move on, but Jake's shadow still loomed over me. Days later, as I was leaving a gallery where Tom was exhibiting some of his photos, I spotted Jake across the street. He looked different, thinner, and with a worried expression. My heart raced, and I wondered if he had seen me. What did he want? Before I could think better of it, Jake crossed the street, his eyes fixed on mine. "Sarah," he called, his voice trembling. "Can we talk? I really need you." "Not right now, Jake. I'm not ready," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please, just a moment. I have something important to tell you," he insisted, taking a step closer. His gaze was intense and vulnerable, and I found myself hesitating. My heart was at war. "I don't know if I want to hear what you have to say," I murmured, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "I know I messed up, but I'm trying to be a better man." "You know how much I love you, Sarah," he said, his voice pleading for understanding. "Love? You betrayed my trust, Jake. How can I believe you again?" The words came out harsher than I intended. I felt a rising anger, but also a deep sadness as I remembered everything we had built together. "I know I can't change the past, but I'm willing to fight for you. I don't want to lose you," he said, his voice almost a whisper. I looked at him and saw the desperation in his eyes. "You don't understand. I'm not the same person anymore. I'm changing, rediscovering myself. I can't go back," I declared, determined not to let my emotions take over. "So you're with that photographer? Is that what's happening?" The indignation in his voice caught me off guard. I didn't expect him to know about Tom. "That's none of your business," I replied, feeling my blood boil. "I'm not your Sarah anymore. You lost me." With that, I turned and walked toward my studio, leaving Jake behind. Anger and sadness mixed in my chest, like a storm ready to break. As I walked, I couldn't help but think of Tom and how he was becoming an important part of my life. That night, I received a message from Tom asking if I wanted to go out. The idea of being with him made me feel a little lighter, but Jake's memory still haunted me. What did I really want? I was confused and torn between two worlds. "Hey, Tom. Want to go out tomorrow night?" I replied, trying to push thoughts of Jake aside. "Great. How about dinner and then a walk in the park?" he suggested, and I smiled, feeling warmth in my heart. "Perfect. I'm looking forward to it," I wrote back, but deep down, a part of me still felt guilty for starting to like someone new, while another part longed for freedom and renewal. Life was presenting me with new challenges and opportunities, but the shadow of the past still lingered over me, and I knew I would have to face it to move forward. The soft morning light filtered through the windows of my studio, reflecting off the paint scattered across the table. I was in a moment of introspection, staring at a blank canvas in front of me, a symbol of my emotional state. It was as if the canvas was challenging me to project onto it the confusion that inhabited my mind. The sound of my phone interrupted my daydreaming. It was Jake. My heart raced. I knew I needed to face the situation once and for all. "Hey, Sarah. Can I come over tonight? We need to talk." His voice, usually so confident, now sounded hesitant. "Sure," I replied, trying to hide the anxiety growing inside me. What did he want to say? I knew I couldn't postpone this conversation any longer. After all, I was starting to pick myself up, to envision a life without him. By late afternoon, Jake arrived. He looked thinner, with dark circles under his eyes that revealed sleepless nights. As soon as I entered the studio, our eyes met. An awkward silence settled in, and I could feel the tension in the air. "Sarah, He started, but I interrupted him. "Jake, I don't know how to start, but I feel like I need to be honest with you. I'm starting to move on," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He frowned, shock written all over his face. "What do you mean by that? Are you serious?" "I don't know if I want to continue this relationship." The betrayal, all of it made me question what we really were. "I'm no longer sure I want to marry you," I confessed, the pain becoming palpable with every word that left my mouth. "Sarah, please don't do this. I know I made a mistake, but I'm willing to change. I love you," he pleaded, his voice choked, almost desperate. "I love you," I repeated in my mind, but the words felt empty now. "Jake, the problem is that you broke the trust one had in you. And for me, that's irreparable." He stepped closer, his pleading eyes searching mine. "Give me a chance to prove that I can be the man you deserve. Please don't throw it all away so easily." I felt a wave of empathy for him, but also a growing resentment. "You don't get it, Jake. It's not just about you. It's about me. I can't stay in a relationship that hurts me. We need time apart to think." He lowered his head, as if the weight of reality was crushing him. "So you need some time? Is that what you want?" "Yes, I need it. Time for myself. To understand what I really want," I replied, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. The conversation continued, but his words began to blend into a whirlwind of emotions that I could no longer decipher. Each promise of change felt like a distant echo, a shadow of what had once been. It was as if we were speaking different languages, each trapped in our own truths. After a while, Jake finally said goodbye, and I felt a knot unraveling in my chest. It was the first time in weeks that I could breathe a little more easily. The silence of the studio was comforting. I was alone, but I didn't feel lonely. On the contrary, there was a new determination within me. In the days that followed, I dove into my work. The colors danced on my palette, and I let each brushstroke capture the emotional journey I was experiencing. Art was becoming my refuge, the purest form of expression I knew. On some nights, I even worked late, lost in creations that spoke of pain, betrayal, and, most importantly, freedom. One of those nights, while mixing shades of blue and green, my phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Tom, the photographer who had supported me in recent weeks. "Hey, Sarah, how about we grab a coffee tomorrow? I'd love to hear how your creations are coming along." An involuntary smile appeared on my face. Tom had become a pleasant presence in my life, someone who listened without judgment and encouraged me to move forward. "Sure. What time?" I replied quickly. The next day arrived, and I dressed with special care. It wasn't to impress Tom, but to feel good about myself. The cafe was bustling, and as I walked in, I noticed my anxiety had dissipated. The aroma of fresh coffee and the lively chatter around me wrapped me in a cloak of normalcy. "Sarah, so good to see you," Tom exclaimed, standing up to greet me. His warm smile made my heart race. "Hey, Tom, I'm excited to see you. And to talk about art, of course," I replied as I took my seat at the table. We talked about everything: art, dreams, and even each other's love lives. He listened intently, and I didn't hesitate to share what had happened between Jake and me. It felt good to have someone who wasn't involved in the situation, someone who offered a fresh perspective. "I think you're doing the right thing, Sarah. Sometimes we need to step back to grow and understand what we really want," he said, taking a sip of his coffee. "Thanks, Tom. I'm really trying to find myself again," I confessed, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Time flew by, and before I knew it, it was time to leave. Tom walked me to the cafe door, and before we said goodbye, he said, "If you need someone to talk to or just to vent, I'm here. You don't have to go through this alone." I smiled, feeling warmth in my chest. "Thank you, Tom. That means a lot to me." The conversation left me with a sense of hope. As I walked back home, I realized I was beginning to pick myself up. Life without Jake was becoming a tangible possibility, and I was willing to explore this new phase. In the following days, the studio became my sanctuary. Each painting I created was a step toward my healing. Art was allowing me to transform pain into beauty, and I felt empowered with each new piece I finished. Finally, in a moment of pure inspiration, I painted a canvas depicting a woman breaking free from invisible chains. It was a representation of myself, of what I had lived through, and what I was about to achieve. I knew there was still a long way to go, but with each passing day, I felt stronger. The love and betrayal that had marked me were becoming part of my story, a story I was determined to rewrite. The soft afternoon light filtered through the large windows of the gallery space, illuminating the white walls displaying my works. It was a moment of celebration, the culmination of months of hard work, and the energy of the event pulsed around me. The lively voices of the guests, mingled with laughter and compliments, created a melody that echoed in my heart. I felt like I was finally regaining control of my life. While conversing with some art critics and admirers, the adrenaline of being the center of attention filled me with joy. The world seemed to be opening up to me, and I was determined to savor every moment. Yet, at the back of my mind, Jake's presence was a weight I couldn't ignore. I knew he would be there, but I wasn't sure how I would feel seeing him. And then, amid the crowd, I spotted him. Jake was standing at the entrance, with an expression that swung between hope and anguish. His hair was immaculate, as always, and the white shirt he wore contrasted with the dark suit, but the light in his eyes was no longer the one I recognized. It was a mix of regret and desperation. "Sarah," he called, slowly approaching. The sound of his voice made my heart race in ways I didn't want. "You look amazing." "Thanks, Jake," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "What are you doing here?" I couldn't miss this. I know I did terrible things, but I want to talk to you. Please." I looked around us, feeling the atmosphere of the party. "Jake, now is not the time. Today is about my art, not about us." "I understand, but I need one last chance, Sarah. I regret what I did, and I'm here to prove that I've changed." I took a deep breath, trying to control the storm of emotions swirling within me. "You don't understand, Jake. What you did can't just be erased with words. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight." He hesitated, as if trying to find the right words. "I know, but I'm willing to do anything. Just give me a chance." "Jake, you betrayed me. And even if you're regretful now, I can't just forget that." The firmness in my voice surprised even me. It was as if, in saying those words, I was finally freeing myself from the weight I had been carrying. "I love you, Sarah. You're the only one I want." He looked genuinely distressed, and it made me feel a pang of pain. But I knew I couldn't give in. "I can't believe you anymore," I said, turning to leave. "I need to go." The party continued, and I tried to focus on the conversations, but Jake's presence loomed like a shadow. While this should have been a moment of joy, it turned into a reminder of what I had lost. With every laugh and every compliment, I remembered how Jake's betrayal had nearly destroyed me. In the days that followed, I still struggled with what had happened. The memory of his plea wouldn't let me be at peace. But amid this emotional turmoil, an unexpected revelation emerged. During a conversation with Lily, my best friend, she told me something that left me stunned. "Sarah, you never told me who the mistress was. You know who she is, right?" Lily asked, with a curious look. "No, I don't know. I just know he was with someone," I replied, still trying to process everything. "I heard from a friend that the mistress is someone named Amanda. She worked with Jake at his company," Lily said, and something inside me stirred. Amanda. The name sounded familiar, and then the connection hit me like a punch to the gut. Amanda? Amanda Martins? The same one from college? I asked, incredulous. "Yes, that one. You didn't know?" I felt dizzy. Amanda was a classmate, a girl who always had an air of confidence and charm. But why would she do this? Why would Jake get involved with her? "I don't know, but it's something you need to find out," Lily said, her expression serious. "You need to know the truth." That's how, with a mix of determination and fear, I decided to confront Jake once more. It was time to unearth the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I needed to understand what had really happened between them. When I finally found Jake, he was sitting in a cafe, looking lost. "Sarah," he said upon seeing me, and his tone was that of a man who knew he was about to face the storm. "We need to talk," I said, sitting down across from him. "About Amanda." He flinched, as if I had pulled a trigger. "What do you know?" "I know you were with her, Jake. I know the betrayal wasn't just an anonymous message. Why did you do this?" "Sarah, I didn't know what I was doing. It was a mistake." He looked vulnerable, but I couldn't forget the pain his betrayal had caused me. "A mistake? You can't just sum this up as a mistake. It destroyed everything we built together." I know, but I was lost, and Amanda, she offered me something I thought I needed," he said, his voice trembling. "I don't love her, I never did." I was confused. "Confused? That's not an excuse, Jake." My voice was steady, but the pain consumed me. "You betrayed me with a friend. How could you?" He lowered his head, and I realized he was giving up. "I don't know. I just wanted to feel alive again, and I lost you in the process." And there, in the middle of the cafe, I realized that Jake's lies weren't just about betrayal. There was something deeper, something he wasn't willing to share. Anger and sadness intertwined within me, but there was also a sense of liberation. "I can't do this anymore, Jake. I can't live in a world of lies and betrayals." The statement came out as a whisper, but it echoed in my heart. As silence settled between us, I knew I was ready to close that chapter of my life. Jake's betrayal was not just about lost love, but about broken trust. And what I needed now was to free myself from him. The next day, with the help of a lawyer, I decided it was time to seek restitution. Not just for the betrayal, but for what I had lost within myself. When I walked into the office, the weight on my shoulders felt lighter, as if each step was taking me further away from the past. And when I finally found myself sitting in front of the lawyer's desk, papers and pen in hand, a wave of determination washed over me. It was time to take the reins of my life. I was ready to move forward, not just as Sarah, but as a strong and independent woman. As the signature was inked on the paper, a feeling of freedom enveloped me. Jake had deceived and betrayed me, but now, more than ever, I was ready to embrace a new future. And that future began with art, with my passion, and perhaps with Tom, who had been by my side throughout this process. As I left the office, I looked up at the blue sky above me. The sun was shining brightly, and I knew that despite the shadows of the past, I was closer to the light than ever. Life was calling me, and I was ready to answer. Claro. Por favor, forneça o texto que você gostaria que eu traduzisse. Claro. Por favor, forneça o texto que você gostaria que eu traduzisse. Claro. Por favor, forneça o texto que você gostaria que eu traduzisse.